All right, welcome back to the Cantina. You're here with Ben and I. Grant's still looking for those access codes to Mount Tantus, but hopefully he'll get here sooner or
I
later.
know. Hopefully you didn't get attacked by a
I know.
space bear or anything.
Right. Yeah, we'll see. But we got an animation spectacular for you tonight. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about the series finale of Bad Batch. We're talking about all 6 episodes of Tales of the Empire. Possibly the misnamed Tales of the Empire, but we'll talk about that momentarily, not to give stuff away. We got an Acolyte trailer to maybe talk a little bit about, but before all that, we all did a thing for May the 4th that I think we should talk about.
Absolutely. I every year something comes up. I never get to celebrate my birthday, and I never get to celebrate May the 4th. For whatever reason, and this year was different. This year we did something different, and actually I attribute it a lot to you, Adam. You brought this up to us that they were doing all 9 Skywalker Saga films in one 24-hour, 23-hour bender. And you're like, do you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, I want to do that theoretically. and Adam's like, I've got tickets. And I was like,
great, got the tickets.
Okay.
Let's do it.
It's on. It's on like Voltron. And we did it, man. It was... what I told everyone when they asked me about the experience, I said 10 out of 10, I would not recommend.
It's hilarious. It's exactly the same thing. Everyone kept asking me like, how'd it go? I'm like, it was amazing. It was like something I'm so glad I did. I'll never do that again. That's the truth. It's like of many experiences in my life, like my cross-country solo road trip. So glad I did it. It was amazing. I'm never doing that again. But
it was an absolute trial. I was just like, like thinking about it. Cause you got the tickets like a month ago. So I've had a lot of time to think about what the like marathon was going to be like. And I was like, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work because I don't remember the last time I stayed awake for that long. Like essentially it's like, 24 hours plus, 12.
That's the kicker.
36 hours. So,
it was 36. Yeah.
And, I did fade a little bit, of course, on the 2 movies I wanted to see the most, A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, but, soldiered through, got a second wind and honestly, really, really appreciate the like perspective watching all 9 Star Wars like Skywalker Saga films back to back. Like I was like, how much could it change my perception? I've essentially memorized all of these movies,
right?
But it really did give me a entirely new understanding of the Skywalker Saga and the tone of these movies and how it shifted over time. And it really gave me a new appreciation for the sequels. I could sort of see like what that next evolution was. There was like that sort of campy, slapsticky, mythological sort of heavy hand. But they sort of jumped it up with incredible acting and incredible script writing, and really, really powerful moments. And, it really, I loved Rise of Skywalker. I loved it.
I kind of think it might be the perfect and only way you can cap out those 9 films. And that's kind of wild me saying that. And granted, now keep in mind being up for 36 hours straight with some micro naps in the middle could be part of it. But like that is a movie that rises in my esteem every time I watch it, that I think there's a lot more to it than people give it credit. And because it has so much on its shoulder, and we talked about this before it came out. Like having to land the
proverbial spaceship,
the ship that they were putting together mid-flight that were the sequel trilogy, having to do that with like being handed the film with a specific date that they were not going to move, and having like so little runway, and then also having to like try to bring in everything from the Skywalker saga and trilogy. And there's things they could have done for sure, but like I don't know, I think they did quite a bit. I mean, I remember, like, I distinctly remember in like watching episode 3 when we were like fresh faced and like, this is easy, we're gonna do this, no problem. You just leaned over to me and like, oh, it's like when Mace Windu. I do that every time I talk about the. I do that every time I talk about the scene. I can't help myself, and it's not even on purpose. But Mace Windu, blocks and gives Palpatine a scarred face, and it's the exact same move that Rey uses to finally dispatch him. Right? Like it's just kind of this nice little we were joking with each other and kept looking at each other and going, it rhymes like a tone poem,
Yeah.
but like
The
it
famous
does. And that's,
George Lucas quote. Yeah, it rhymes.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it really does stick together really well, and by the end of it, it was great. And it has its little shifts, but and I did feel like Last Jedi. To me, this time, The Last Jedi, I did feel a little push and pull when it was like Abrams, Rian Johnson, Abrams, with their story. Like I could feel sort of, it was like, I really, really loved Force Awakens, and we talked about this in the studio, so we can talk about it here too. But I loved Force Awakens this time more than ever. Like any time watching it, and I've always liked that movie. But I was like, I really thought JJ kind of got it and really like did the thing, and I even I knew what was going to happen with Starkiller, and my one blip with that is the like one half a sentence that explains that it's a hyperspace gun, or a light speed gun, blaster thing that's mounted to a planet, which is whatever. That's my one hiccup. Sure. But so I saw that coming, and like everything else, I was just like, no, this is fresh, but it's familiar. And these characters are amazing, and I can't wait to see where they're going. And you get, he starts, laying the groundwork for Finn to be force sensitive in that, in a really exciting way.
Absolutely.
And then, and then, I mean, I love The Last Jedi, and actually I just saw a thing where, I think the highest, like the most streams or something on Disney Plus right now is The Last Jedi for over May the 4th weekend. May the 4th be with you, by the way. This is the May, I think what we're saying now. This is the May. So it's a month-long celebration.
Okay. All right. Sure. Yeah. I like it.
But yeah. I know it's just like, I mean, it's just that one thing where like Rian Johnson completely sets down that the whole idea that Finn is force sensitive in that movie, and I guess there's no place to put it, whatever. And then it gets picked up back, so I really like JJ's like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and finish the story that I wanted to finish, like wanted in the first place. And I think that, he shook hands with what Rian Johnson did in a good way.
I think so. I mean, I think Rian Johnson set up the entire Raise of Palpatine. That's all throughout Last Jedi. It's there. You went right for the dark. Who are you? It's right there, right? And like I think that is like something that JJ. There's things I don't like about JJ. Like do I love Rose Tico. I like her more and more. I watch the series. I think she's a great addition to like Star Wars. Is just like bringing this. She's like their version of Lando. Like this fourth character that kind of disrupts your three main characters in a fun way. But it's a very different type of character. But I love that character, which is why I love Lando. But like. Yeah, I gotta stay on the base and do stuff, which I mean, part of that was because they needed a somewhat of a heavy hitter there to fill in the gaps for Carrie Fisher wasn't there, and I get that.
She really
but
didn't do much.
Boy,
it was a lot of Beaumont.
No, I wish it was. I mean, give it to Beaumont Kin. He's fine. He can deliver lines. I mean, he has the most memorable line in the entire entire Rise of Skywalker, right? So it's funny. Like I agree. Like my opinion about the sequel trilogy rose quite a bit. No pun intended, watching these three in a row after watching all the other six, because I think it actually fits together better than people give it credit for. And if you look at the original trilogy, the tonal shifts of the original trilogy are kind of wild. Like The Empire Strikes Back is a shockingly different movie than Star Wars, than A New Hope. And like Return of the Jedi is shockingly different to those other two. Like, I mean, you get the joke of it's like a bunch of Muppets, but it really is. And it's also the grossest. Like, it's got the grossest stuff, Return of the Jedi, which I love. Like Jabba's palace is just gross and it's great. Yeah. But like Star Wars is about tonal shifts. And what I'll say is that I think The Force Awakens has one of the best opening in a Star Wars movies ever. Like the first 20 minutes of that movie to me is like a masterpiece. Like introducing those new characters. I care about all of these new characters, including Kylo Ren. Like I love that. Like I just love his intro. I love the whole thing. After that, and this is what I want to say, is that this gave me. So when I'm judging these movies now, this is my opinion. If you're going to sit and watch them all in a 24-hour period, which I think is very important, is that I would put Force Awakens close to the bottom of my ranking if you asked me to rank the movies if you were going to watch them all in a row. Because after watching at that point 15 hours of Star Wars
Yeah.
movies, 14 hours of Star Wars movies. I was just sitting there in a seat, sleep deprived, and just going, I just watched this movie. We just watched this movie. We're watching this movie again after that 20 minutes. Now, that's, again, not my general opinion of The Force Awakens. I think the movie's a masterpiece, and JJ did exactly what the assignment was. He needed to reintroduce the canon, reintroduce everything. He does it beautifully, but watching it. And that's why, like, to me, Last Jedi rose so much higher in that structure, because like it was like a breath of fresh air. Suddenly, like 8th movie in, I'm like, we're doing something different. We're doing Star Wars, but we're doing it different. So that's like, I can't rank them because like I almost like need 2 different ranking systems, which is just like general like Star Wars rankings, and then if you're gonna watch them, in 1 24-hour period, which is like, you know, not necessarily recommended.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, I'm too much of a fanboy to rank really the Star Wars movie. I just sort of, I'm like, well, how am I feeling this moment?
Yeah.
Like if, you know, I had to watch them, you know, what would I do? And yeah, I'm too much of a fanboy for that, you know. And so yeah, it was weird. Like you were higher on Last Jedi than I was, and I was higher on Force Awakens
really
than you were.
Yeah.
But I think I really liked Force Awakens, I think, because I was like, new characters, like all new characters. Let's go. And they're like, the dialogue's fantastic. They're such lovable characters. Daisy Ridley does such a good job. John Boyega. And obviously Oscar Isaac. You know, they're amazing actors, all of them. And
they are. It really rises it or brings it to another level. It does.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you know, not.
Those movies have the more cry moments for me, and I think it's because of the actor's delivery. And like, I honestly think it's because of the mix, because you get to the like sound mixing in like in the 21st century, like the music swells to the level that it drowns everything else. The line deliveries, like Rey grabbing that lightsaber, will always choke me up at the end of Force Awakens. It always gets me, even though I know it's coming, because I just remember that feeling. Less so in Last Jedi, though I got a little teary with Rose, but man, oh man. Does Rise of Skywalker have pound for pound the most cry moments in any Star Wars movie? Like,
so we had we went to this theater in Dedham, Massachusetts. It was a very fun experience. The 501st is there to welcome us, which was great. And yeah, like it was like a lightsaber, you know, parade, like as you came in, and they gave you all this swag and doing all these things. But man, I'm never going back. I'm never going back to that theater ever again, because it's just like, it was grueling. But, you know, so towards the end, we had like a really long walk to the men's room. I passed 2 women's room on the way to the men's room in that theater, which I only went to about 1,500 times. I drank about 1,000 Coke Zeros.
Oh, so many Coke
Zeros. Oh my God.
I've
I've never drank that much soda in my life. And I never will again.
I've never been so tired and so wired at the same time, where I'm like, caffeine's not even doing it. Like, I'm getting heart palpitations and I'm still falling asleep.
Yeah, I tried all the things, and like Coke Zero, for some reason, that was what was like least astringent on my physiology, and like actually pepped me up enough to keep me going. Anyways, that was an immensely long way of saying I overheard a couple of guys on the way to the men's room. They were like, man, every time I know it's coming, but I still bawl my eyes out. You know, about Rise of Skywalker. And it's true. It just, man, that thing hits it. Like, before you know it, it's just like there's, you know, the retribution of Ben Solo. It's a sort of like, you know, Leia dies, and then it's like, and then they're back, and then it's just like, and then it just takes off, and it's like there's so many really, you know, string moments, and and like actually the speed of the movie, all those cuts and all those things, like it pays off, and I was like grateful for it in hour 20 to have a movie that cut that fast, because I was like, oh yeah, this scene's awesome, and oh yeah, this scene's awesome, and this scene's awesome, and it's just like bang bang bang, and like there's evil Rey, and there's like, you know, I know all this other stuff.
It's wild. Yeah, you cannot fall asleep during that movie. It's really hard, and like I fell asleep a lot during Force Awakens because it's comforting. Like it's not boring. It's just a comforting movie. Like when it gets to like Grant and I talk about a lot. Like there's like multiple quote unquote campfire scenes in that movie, and they happen like 3 in a row. Yeah. So I'm just like you put me, which I love campfire scenes usually, but man. And then the other thing Ben, you hinted at earlier, is with the way this started, it started at 8 p.m. So you're already been up for 12
Yeah.
hours before you're starting to watch these movies, which I get it kind of, but I think they should have started at 8 a.m., 8 a.m.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Anyway, but by the time you hit like the original trilogy, it's 3 a.m. It's the middle of the night when they start A New Hope. And boy, oh boy, is that just such a comforting movie to me, because I think I saw maybe 15 minutes of A New Hope, like coherently. Yeah. Like I saw something, I was scrolling through Instagram today, I saw the Dianoga scene, and I'm like, oh man, I was completely out during Trash.
Didn't even see it.
I did not. No. I forgot that even happened. Yeah, no. And then same with Empire. I missed so much Empire.
I missed almost
poor Grant. That's all he was waiting for.
I know. And I'm looking forward to hearing from Grant next week about his experience at this. I mean, by the time we parted ways, we were all so just like, boxers in the 12th round, just like, okay, well, see you later. Like brain's not working, and all that. So, looking forward to hearing about Grant's experience with that and everything else next week. I hope he's feeling better.
Yeah.
But, actually this might've been this event, I think, was what knocked him out.
I had a bit of a scratchy throat. I think it was just like, for me, it was just the sleep deprivation of like whatever, bacteria is always living in your system asserted itself, because it's like, oh, he's weak. I'm going to get him.
And I mean, dude, by like movie 4, that theater smelled like a locker room. It was so gross.
You'd walk in there and it was just ripe.
Just
imagine like 50 Star Wars fans oh man, it was something else. And I had done marathons, like smaller marathons before. Like I used to always do the Best Picture showcase, but they'd show like 4 or 5 movies in a row, like 4 movies in a row. And I'm like, and then I didn't realize like 4 is not even half of 9. So
that would have been a breeze. I mean, we zipped through the prequels. Those were a blast. So much fun. All the prequels and I was really glued to, because you can't not be. It's such a compelling movie. Rise of the Revenge of the Sith. That was just like
same. That's usually
it's a long movie.
That's usually bottom of my ranking, but I was like tuned in this time.
Yeah.
I was like
think
totally in on it.
It is such an emotional roller coaster. It's like it's a hard watch because you know what's coming, and it's like actually all the directors did the thing where it's just like there's these really tense moments and you're just like, maybe this time Anakin won't turn to the dark side, or maybe this time Mace will do something different, or maybe this time Ben Solo will not die, or like or like it there's there's just so many moments, but it really I guess I would give yourself 3 days, do a trilogy a day, find a nice snowy weekend or a weekend where you can't get out of the house, and go trilogy, and it's just it was a blast. So
it is the way to do it. Can I hard change the subject for a second, because that just reminded me of this idea of like maybe next time. Did you see the trailer for the new Lego Star Wars special?
No, I didn't. I saw that it's happening.
So it's called Rebuild the Galaxy, and basically something happens and the galaxy gets destroyed, and you get all these what if situations happening in Lego Star Wars. So you're actually going to get Darth Jar Jar.
Of course
in this.
You are.
So it's just so funny because we talk about how much we want a what if series in Star Wars.
This is how to do it,
like a mini version of it. So maybe we'll get what if Anakin did fall to the dark side, but that doesn't seem super fun for Lego, so they probably won't go that direction. But we'll see.
I guess that's the thing with there's always a monstrous brick shaped asterisk next to everything Lego does, but they have so much fun with Star Wars. And there were a lot of things that were canon, and that makes so much sense for this to be like, they're the ones that get the leeway to be like, well, we're just playing here. So don't take anything too seriously. That's where you do the what ifs.
Yeah. Even though they introduced in was it the summer vacation that that Finn's out there looking for Jedi for Rey or something?
Yeah,
remember they did something like that.
The Star Wars Summer Vacation. I recommend watching it. But at the end, it's Finn is the central character to it. This time they were just like actually trying to be canon. It was like the first thing published after Rise of Skywalker is the Summer Vacation.
Only thing?
Yeah. and
Yeah.
it's them like going off,
Yeah.
and it's like everyone's got their mission, and Finn's trying to find his place, but he vocalizes that it is Rey is looking for more Jedi texts to start her school, and it's Finn's job to go find more students. And I forget what he said Poe was doing. I think he was, I think like the obvious thing, he was like helping rebuild
training pilots
or something.
I don't know, something
with the, with the new, with the Republic, trying to rebuild the Republic, or chasing down like remnants of First Order or something. But that's exciting.
I was gonna say, because you mentioned Finn being the central character, like I am so excited for the Rey movie, and I'm glad about it. But like, I think Finn is essential to any story going past Episode 9.
Yes.
Like watching John Boyega and watching his journey with Finn, and the fact that like he was, I think he's talked about, others talk about, he's underwritten as a character. I would say in the sequel trilogy, and I don't think that's controversial saying that, but boy, does he find a way to make an underwritten character one of the most compelling things to watch in all three movies.
Yep.
And he's just so charming and charismatic, and just gets that character to his core that I need Finn. Like my dog is named Finn after that character, and I was afraid we were going to get like a Khaleesi issue with naming a dog after a character that turns out to be bad or evil or not good. But boy, like that, every time I say Finn, it just makes me like so happy.
Yeah.
I just think of that.
I have a friend who named his son Finn because he didn't think his wife would notice that it was a Star Wars name. And so I hope
it's a good sneaky Star Wars name.
Totally. Yeah, good one. I mean, great Star Wars name. I felt the exact same way, man. He's like, Boyega, you would never know that he's just a consummate professional, just like kills that character, does it so well. I mean, people will disagree, but I love it.
Did I ever tell you what Finn's actual name is on his adoption certificate?
No.
It's FN. It's FN 2187. So when you have to name the dog, his name is actually FN 2187. But we call him Finn.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. You should like tell that to your veterinarian too. It's just like FN 2187. They're like, it's Finn now. As if they should know that. Right. But that would be a good bit every time at the veterinarian. Rad. Another awesome thing that happened with this right after Phantom Menace. So this is 25 year anniversary of the Phantom Menace, which makes me feel extremely old.
Yep.
But yes, it's there. It is now officially too old for Leonardo DiCaprio. So right after showing that, and a lot of people went. It grossed 15 million this weekend, which was it really ate into Fall Guy. Poor Fall Guy only did like 28 or something. So
looks like a fun movie.
No, it looks stupid to me.
All right, fair enough.
It's like if I wanted to watch like Hollywood fillet itself, I'd watch a Paul Thomas Anderson movie like Licorice Pizza or something. I don't know. I don't know.
That's like pretty. I just like watching pretty people have fun.
Okay, there you go. Well, those are your two sides of Fall Guy right there. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Having only seen a preview.
Evan always, I saw a really long one, and it's just like, it's like I don't know. It's like hashtags.
It goes on a little bit long.
As someone that's actually been on set a million times, like there's nothing that grinds my gears more. That people's whole identity is being on set. And it's like, this is my identity, and like everyone needs an identity. That's totally cool. Yeah. But there's something that just grinds my gears about it. Any hoozle. Yeah. After we watched Phantom Menace, they gave us a full scene of the Acolyte. Which was great. I thought it would just be the new trailer, which it was not. We did watch that as well. Nope. But we watched a whole scene, and it was oh my gosh, I don't have their names in front of me right now. It's Matrix woman,
Carrie-Anne Moss. I can do that.
Yeah, Carrie-Anne Moss, right? Her Jedi character on the investigative trail of this acolyte suspect who's been murdering Jedi in a bar, and it's her extremely non-violent pursuit of this character. And it's like it's very Wuhan Kung Fu, classic Kung Fu, Matrix Kung Fu.
Yes. Yeah.
Like fight styles, including or like wuxi, like the long flowing jumps that they do, like the supernatural jumps and things like that. Like
a lot of wire work. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's very much like a classic Kung Fu movie, which I really appreciate because I love Kung Fu movies. And Carrie-Anne Moss is amazing, and the fight sequence is amazing. So it's really just like a fight sequence. She's just pursuing her through this 2-layered like bar, which is very much set up like the old classic Chinese or Japanese, bars where it's like, oh, they're up on this level, now they're down on this level, and they're back up on this level because they're just jumping back and forth. And it was very cool. No plot at all. Just like, this is what the action feels like. Enjoy.
There was a major cut. I don't know if you caught that.
Ooh.
So when May walks up to the table that Indira, yes, I looked these up while you were talking.
Yeah. No, wait, it's not Indira Stokes. Is it Indira or is it
Indira? Indara.
Okay, so it's different than there's Indira Stokes is a different character.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's May walks up to the table and kind of says something. I can't remember what she says. There's like a hard cut in there where I think there's a lot more conversation happening before the attack happens, which is like, ooh, like every time I catch one of those, I'm like, oh, they're cutting those out for a reason. Like there's plot.
Yeah.
There's plot details there, which is exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looked good. It looked so good. Like the choreography looked amazing. And we just, my wife and I, for the broadcast, we watched the new trailer, which we can talk a little bit about, but like we get done with it and Carly's just like, that looks amazing. Mm-hmm. Like she's just like, that looks like a movie. Like they really have, over like the course of the past 5 years, really figured out how to like really blend the volume with practical sets. Like I think they took the lessons from Andor and from like everything, and it just looks seamless in so far what I've seen. Yeah,
it's an iterative process. I mean, they're taking big swings, they're taking iterative steps, but everything I'm seeing from them is just like they're figuring it out. They know what they're doing, and they're getting closer and closer to the mark every time. And because it's not like they're just like trying to harken back to the original trilogy, they're trying to keep the tone alive while still modernizing and being fresh. And but yeah, the vibe is there. The vibes are good. Vibes are there. It looks like a beautiful series, and we have less than a month to wait to see it, which I'm very excited.
Coming soon.
Yeah, so that's very exciting. Yeah, the only sort of the regular there was another trailer that dropped. Nothing really new except for we see the helmet on what we assume is if one's an acolyte, if May's the acolyte, this person with a helmet is probably the teacher, the Sith Lord, instead of the Sith apprentice. And it's, a character in black, red lightsaber, and then this helmet, it's like a black cloak. Then this helmet, which has a lot of people talking online about what just the helmet design could mean. I mean, if you're going for fresh helmet design, this checks all the boxes of being like unlike anything we've seen before. It's sort of got like a V shape down the middle, so it's like sort of like a bird beak, but then underneath it, it's still like sort of a bucket. There is a sort of mangled, toothy grin that covers like 180 degrees underneath the like beak.
Yeah.
And which has led a lot of people to think of Abeloth. I saw some photos of Legends Abeloth where she has like this extended. I know, poor Grant. I'm thinking about
Grant's not here to talk about that.
Yeah, I know. Like Grant always brings up Abeloth. He's like really is a fan of that, and people feel different things about how Abeloth fits. It was a very late Legends ad and is very overpowered, and so it could, but this character could have some relation to Abeloth in that like it's like a cultist of Abeloth or maybe nothing at all, or maybe it's just like a wink and a nod from Leslie, because actually Leslie said she is a Legends fan and knows a lot of these things, so this could be one of them.
The other thing is you don't have to redo it exactly. You can power balance it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can make it Abeloth and like bring it down to a level that like doesn't OP everything,
Yeah.
right? Even though like I read those and I think Abeloth was at the time a really good addition to the canon
Yeah.
for the EU.
Can you explain to me in a paragraph what Abeloth
No.
is?
No.
Okay. Good. I think Grant did it once on air.
Grant could,
but it's like one of the Mortis gods. It's like the wife of the father of right.
Yeah, it is. So when you're reading the EU at that point, they are trying to weave in all of this stuff while the like Clone War stuff is happening, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think the Mortis arc happens. So like all the EU people are like, oh no, like we got to try to figure out how to like put this in now. Like it's so fun reading the EU in like chronological order and looking at the release date of the book and seeing like, oh, this hasn't happened yet. It doesn't jive there. This doesn't quite connect. It is a Jenga set that is like about to topple if a person takes one more block out.
Yeah.
But like Abeloth is very much, it is a dark side god basically. Like it really gets to that level that can possess and do other stuff, but it is OP and it is very seductive, right? Like it's kind of on the seductive side of the dark side, which is nice. Like it's an interesting way to tell that story, right? And you get some of your major characters being seduced by this thing, and it's interesting. Like the EU gets wild with the Sith stuff because there's like a planet of Sith that like got stuck on a planet for millennia without any like hyperdrive.
Another thing Grant loves. He loves that concept so much.
Not so much for me, but I guess Grant likes it. I'm a little more like they couldn't figure out how to get off planet for how long?
Yeah, right. And they're supposedly super powered. Like, okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that little catch up on that.
I should be able to tell you more because I read it the most recently, probably of all of us. I finished it off, but I was plowing through those books to get to the end because that's one of those things where it's like similar, like to a marathon. You're kind of like not paying attention to the last mile. Like, I'm almost there.
I'm almost there.
Yeah.
So that was the big takeaway as we actually saw the Sith Lord, and I think it's safe to say it's not Tenebrous. It's not necessarily Tenebrous's master. It's like there's someone else here, and maybe they don't even make it to Sith Lord. Like maybe there's a bracket system going on with the with the Sith at this point, where a lot of people are calling themselves the Sith, and but there isn't actually, as it hasn't been melded down to just two yet.
No,
it's a big galaxy.
The thing. Like we just don't know, right? Yeah. Like we just like, and as Leslie Headland keeps saying, she's like, whatever you think the Acolyte is, it isn't.
Yep.
Right. Which I appreciate that. That is strong talk, which I like strong talk. So
we'll see. We'll put that to the test here on this podcast, and hopefully with your all participation, get at us about that.
I will say when I saw the helmet, everyone was like, it's something you've never seen before. I'm like, I don't know, it kind of looks like a Knight of Ren to me, but just saying.
I did see someone say, like, could this have something to do with the Knights of Ren? And it got poo-pooed pretty quick because it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. They weren't formed yet. They were formed ABY. Like, they're after Battle of Yavin. And I also don't think they didn't hit the way people wanted or like JJ wanted them to hit. So I don't.
Period.
They didn't hit. No, I don't. I think we've definitely seen the last of the Knights of Ren. Do not expect it. Well, I don't know. Everything has its like. Maybe in 30 years when all the prequel kids come about to age, we'll get our Knights of Ren Disney Plus or Disney Plus or Disney Ultimate, whatever it is at that point.
The designs were beautiful. It was a great concept, but ultimately they're just dark side raiders. They're just like mild dark side users.
Ghouls.
Yeah, ghouls. Exactly. That were just sort of happened upon, and there should be more of those. I love light side factions and I love dark side factions. It's a big galaxy, and that's all fascinating. How everyone embraces the Force, and it has ramifications for what happened in Dawn of the Jedi, and we're going to talk more about those things as we talk about Tales of the Empire and as we talk about the Bad Batch finale, actually, because there's a lot of they're doing a really great job of sort of extending their tendrils backwards and forwards in all the things they do now.
It's true.
But so Acolyte in a month, that's going to be great. Why don't we talk about the Bad Batch finale? I'm so sorry it's been so late, but in covering this, but it really, when you stick 36 hours of movie watching in the middle of when you usually record a podcast, it delays you a little bit.
Yeah, you can't pod Thursday because you need a good night's sleep before that. Friday we're in the middle of it, and Saturday I was useless. I was useless. Like Carla was laughing at like the conversations we were trying to have, and she's like, "Do you want to watch something before we go to bed?" I'm sure. I was like trying to watch. Like I was just like
I couldn't
pretending to laugh along at things.
Yeah.
No. We just put on some British show, and I was just like, she's like, that wasn't a joke. I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I watched the first 3 episodes of Tales of the Empire and was like, and had like a small bowl of like comfort food, pasta, and was like, I'm like, I can't. My eyes don't want to watch a screen anymore. Like, I have to just go to bed. And then I slept for 10 hours, but I'm still kind of recovering.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
my stomach's not the same. My sleep patterns are like, bro.
Yeah.
Well, these cocktails at the Star Wars Cantina, I'm sure, should help just get my physiology back to normal. But all right, so anyways, mea culpa. I wish we had talked about this on Wednesday or Thursday last week, because I mean, this is the end of Bad Batch, man. This is
this is the
thing. And yeah, it was a delightful ending. It was a really delightful ending to the end of the series. I'm always waiting till the last brushstroke on these series, because that sort of exemplifies what it is. You know, there was a million theories that we had about this series, about which ways it could go and what sort of subversive elements they could do, or, you know, what sort of big swings. And it wasn't that show.
No, it wasn't.
You know,
and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with it too. It's about the clones. It's about this group. It's about the, you know, the end of the clones and the beginning of the conscripts. It's about the end of the Kaminoans. And that's what it is, you know, and there was a couple of big ticket cameos in this series. We had the Emperor. I mean, we had Tarkin, and we had Asajj Ventress out of nowhere. And none of them really had anything to do with the story.
No.
Yeah. So they were just there.
It was a very straightforward ending to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the word I used when I was watching is like, wow, that was a very restrained ending to this. Yeah. Right. I think, you know, Filoni and everyone else working on this were just like, yeah, we could tell this giant Star Wars story, but remember, Star Wars is about family, right? Yeah. At its core, Star Wars is a family story. Every time, every trilogy, right? Like, you watch the prequel trilogy, it's just driven home. You're my brother, like Anakin. You're my brother, right? Yeah. That is that sibling relationship between them, father, son, and siblings. A parentified Obi-Wan Kenobi is like the issue of that entire thing.
Yeah,
and then you watch the you know, and then you literally have the brother sister story. In the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, you have like the found family story, which I appreciate, right? So you have this whole thing. And so that's what they wanted to lean on, is like, let's lean on the family stuff here. And they don't need anyone else other than the Bad Batch to get them out of the situation. The cavalry is the Bad Batch, not this outside force, because they don't need it.
I know. Yeah. But twice in the season, we had an unnecessary infiltration of Mount Tantus because Omega's found her way out on her own. Yeah. Twice in the same season. But but I mean, that's what it's about. Yeah. She's like, oh, these are my brothers in my squad.
Yeah.
And and she's grown and she's learned, and she's a very capable and essential member of that team, you know. And she's like, no, I'm going back in. We don't, you know, all of these like really great lessons about all the best parts of the clones are taught to her by the Bad Batch. These things, just like, we are brothers, we fight for one another, we don't leave anyone behind. Like, it's just like all the coolest things about the poor clones, man. You know, when we were watching Attack of the Clones this past weekend, and I saw all the babies in their, like, you know, Matrix creches on trees, I was just like, oh, you poor things. You know, like, it's a real tragedy. You know, their lives are a real tragedy, but they're fantastic characters, and I love how Filoni did them right, like, did them justice. And it's weird how he used this sort of these misfits to really show why the clones are so great. I mean, they look great in the whole Clone Wars series and all that as well. But I mean, you fall in love with them there. But it was just a really beautiful, fitting little bow on the end of their story.
It was, and I appreciate it. Like, we had these, you know, wild swings throughout the season talking about, is Omega to be force sensitive? I was certain that Tech was going to come back, right? Yeah. Like, and once again, I'm always happy to be proven wrong, because, like, again, it didn't need any of that stuff. Like, I mean,
what would that would have been, right?
it would have been exciting at the moment, but it would have felt like forced. Like I like that. I love that they let Tech be dead, right? And at the end of the series, like she still has his goggles, like on like as whatever fallen brothers there to remind her, right? Like that is the cost of this, right? And to not make her force sensitive, because Omega doesn't need the force. Like she's an amazing person without it, right? Like that's not necessary to make her superpowers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing, you know, but I thought it was funny that it seemed like there were meta ways that Filoni sort of was like, I see what you're thinking. And yes, we laid those plans, but no, that's not what's happening. And, you know, with the Force there, it was sort of like they had the Asajj Ventress episode that's like, oh, maybe she's Force sensitive and she's not. And then, you know, and then in this last episode, we see this sort of, I don't know, oh my gosh, I've been trying to get the name of them. Are they CX droids or are they, oh my gosh. What is this? This is not, I tried pulling this up in like the last second here, but it didn't.
Yeah, you're talking about the droids on Tantus?
Yeah, what are they called?
Or it just says medical droids.
No.
Tantus medical droids.
They're either called CZ droids or clone assassins is what they, I guess.
Oh, right, the actual like
This is
CX.
There's the RCX troopers.
Yeah, CX2, yeah.
Okay, so the CX like troopers are just sort of, you know, they're essentially they're just like they're clones that have been modified so that they're almost as awesome as the Bad Batch. That have just been like done, but like, you know, they're kind of doppelgangers of the Bad Batch. There's like a heavy and a sharpshooter, and then like a melee weapon specialist, and there's even one, and like his helmet keeps falling off, and it's like beautifully backlit, and it looks like Tech's helmet.
It sure does.
And that just feels like it was like, I mean, that's just Filoni being like, no, sorry.
Yep, just messing with you.
Just messing with you.
No, it's great.
Just getting trolled by him. But yeah, that was, you know, so I don't know. He's having fun at our expense, but, you know, but it's fun. It's still fun to like have all these theories. And I think they enjoy feeding into them so that, you know, people run wild with all of them. But when all is said and done, it was the exact show that you would thought it was.
Exactly. And it's the best thing. Having these theories to me is always the most fun, because like I have learned since the sequel trilogy to have every theory that I want and to have zero attachment to any of those. It's a very Jedi take of it, like no attachments. Yeah. Right. Like you can have the theories but no attachments. And then like if I'm right, I get that little like feel satisfaction. But to be honest, if I'm right about something in Star Wars, it kind of makes me feel mad at Star Wars, because I'm like, I'm not that smart or good of a storyteller, so you should have outthought me.
That's not
but
true.
You know what I mean? I like it when they do something I'm not expecting, right? Yeah. Which is funny, because what they did was just the Bad Batch. Like they just did the Bad Batch. Like it's perfect. It was kind of the perfect ending to the whole thing.
Yeah. It's like, you know, they had to do these narrative episodes and they had to go here and there and plot whatever, but I really feel like the last like 4 or 5 episodes were just the Bad Batch being awesome. It was just like a nice, like, you know, 4 episode of them like having a mission, executing the mission,
just a mission,
being awesome and doing their thing. And it was just like a really nice sign off for the series.
It was perfect. It was great. I really love it. I also love that we have like, Rampart is not, it doesn't do the turn to good.
Yes.
Right. Like he's just evil to the core, which I appreciate. Like I like that sometimes, where he just like, I love redemption stories, and we'll talk a little about that when we talk about Tales of the Jedi or Tales of the Empire, I'm sure. But like, it's also okay to have a bad guy just stay a bad guy. Yeah. Right. Like just to his core. And like sometimes their missions align, and I appreciate that their missions aligned for a while. And when they didn't, Rampart just went back to looking out for Rampart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. And I mean, there's actually so many things to talk about in this episode. I have a million things to go on. I'm tempted to get into like, because I do have some theories. I have some serious questions about like what happened next. But there are some great things. I think I just want to say, because you talked about Rampart, Nala Se ended up having a really huge influence on this. And it was just like, hey, don't forget the genocide of the Kaminoans. I mean, talk about tragic. Like, The Kaminoans were amazing, and it was like I don't know if she's the last one, but she's definitely one of the last ones. And she made the ultimate sacrifice to keep that science with her people, and to have that science die with her and her people.
Right.
And I mean, without that, I mean, she's really the secret hero of the rebellion. Like, I mean, you know, if that dark science like carried forward, you know, maybe there would be no way to kill the Emperor. You know, he would have a million copies himself. He could just like jet back into at any moment, and you know, they'd never get rid of them. You can't really overstate the importance of Nalase's sacrifice there.
I mean, she theoretically set back the Emperor
30 years,
40 years, 30 years, 35 years, or however do the math. Like, he's still not there by Rise of Skywalker, right? Like, he just happens to find he ends up, you know, Strandcast having a grandchild, which is really his grandchild / daughter. Anyway, let's not dwell on that too long. And then that's the plan. Dark magic, Sith magic, not really a clone, just a dark science, And so if Nalase, you know, gave in, it'd be a completely different story.
I mean, it just makes you think. Like, it reminds me of certain administrations now. It's just like, well, if you really value the cloning prowess and the science of these people, maybe you don't carpet bomb their home. Like, maybe you don't just kill them all. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Like, if you really wanted this, you know, maybe you treat those people nicely instead of killing them all. I don't know. And enslaving them and whatever. Like, all they want to do is the science, and you're that just really killing
sounds logical.
them. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
But it makes sense now. It checks out because of real world events. I'm like, oh yeah, it makes sense that people are just that dumb.
Star Wars is always a reflection on
of what's going on in the real world. So that's pretty great. I mean, there's a bunch of other like little things in here. So Omega is saved by Crosshair shooting with he loses his right hand.
He loses his right arm.
Well, just his hand, right? But it was his bad hand.
Arm or hand, just his hand.
It was his bad hand, and he cut it, and
that's true.
And so he's forced to use his left, and makes the shot of his life with his left hand to free Omega.
Such a great moment.
Really amazing. And then it was weird. It was a really weird scene after that. So she's freed. Hemlock falls over the thing to his death. And they were like on their knees, like both Hunter and Crosshair were on their knees where they took the shot, and they stayed on their knees. And so they forced Omega to run the 100 meters down the gangway to them rather than them jumping up and meeting in the middle or anything. And she's forced to, like Sophie's choice, to choose who to hug first. Did you catch this? I don't know if I'm making too big a deal out of this, but.
No. I didn't catch it, but now that you're retelling it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. So and totally.
Like, there's, I think, like Crosshair and Hunter share a glance, but she ultimately hugs Crosshair first, and then brings
Crosshair needs it.
Just like, buddy, you did it.
Welcome home. Welcome back.
You saved my life.
Welcome, brother.
It was like his moment, and Hunter deferred to that. Even though as time progresses, we know that like Hunter's really the father figure in Omega's life, or feels that way.
Is Crosshair the best redemption arc in Star Wars so far?
Imagine you asking yourself that question 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I was, we can go back. We had the tape. We went back we recorded too many episodes to find it, but I was, no, F him. He's the worst. They should not redeem him. But no, like, this is the thing, is like, redemption is not easy. And that's what I appreciated about this arc in the season, is like, they didn't give him an easy way out. They didn't just welcome him back. He had to earn it. He had to work on it. He had to get there and sacrifice. And not just sacrifice the easy way, which is to kill himself, right? Like, that's what I love too, is that they didn't take the easy way out, which is like, I guarantee, yes, Darth Vader had to die. It would be a weird thing if at the end of Return of the Jedi, Darth Vader was still alive. Right. It'd be odd.
Same with Kylo Ren.
I still think there was a way, right? And I've talked about it, that there was a way to keep Ben Solo alive. But I think, again, if you're ending a trilogy and you're trying to wrap the whole thing up, it's weird to leave your bad guy alive and be like, and then, you know, he's redeemed. And then you just have all these what ifs that in your mind. So I get it with the movies, but like, this is it. Like, I can't think of another one where we get to spend that much time with the actual arc of redemption, not just like the last scene being, oh, I'm good now. Like, no, he had to work on it.
It was like a message that was sort of like, listen, We don't all get it at the same time in the same way. We have our own perceptions
Yeah.
about the world, and it's just like in his mind, he was doing the right thing, by being like, listen, this is my life. This is who I am. I don't know who's good and who's bad. I just know I'm programmed for this, so I'm just going to follow my programming.
Yeah. And they never took the easy way out with him in terms of like, again, one of the things that I did predict that was right, not to pat myself on the shoulder, but like that, like his chip wasn't working, right? That he made the choice to go with the Empire. Like it wasn't because the chip was working at all. And so like which makes logical sense based on that character, why he went with the Empire. And it makes logical sense why he left the Empire and went back. And just like, again, like I just love that he struggled every step of the way through all 3 seasons. Like there was never a moment of clarity for Crosshair till like the very end.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think on that ice planet that I'm forgetting the name of, I think it was just sort of like the thing that flipped the switch for him was his alliance to his brothers, to the fellow clones.
Yeah.
It's like when you're in the trenches, you fight for the guy next to you or girl next to you. And I think that was, when he saw how poorly all the clones were being treated and like from the inside and seeing how they were systematically just being cannon fodder and wasted, he was like, that's when he was like, yeah, no, these people are bad.
Yeah.
And it just took him a while to get there.
But even at that moment, I don't think he thought, I think he still thought it was too late for him.
Yeah.
Right. Like his end was like, I'm going to kill this guy. And then not even my noble end, my deserved end will be to be tortured and destroyed by the Empire because that's what I deserve.
Yeah.
Right.
And Omega pulled him
it
out
is
of
very
that.
much.
Yeah.
And Omega pulled him out of it. And it is similar, not to like bring in my day job talking about criminal
Here we
justice,
go.
but when you talk about inmates and you talk about some of this thing of just kind of how do you get back to it is part of those stages of just they get to the point of like, I deserve this, which, maybe they do, maybe they don't. It's up to you to figure out how we punish people in the society. But that they think this is all that is their lot in life completely is to be punished for what they did, as opposed to trying to make it right as much as they can and try to spend the rest of their life being a force for good. Right. And so like, I appreciate they told that story in a way. Like, I mean, they told an inmate story in the middle of a Star Wars story in a way that's kind of beautiful. Like, I'm really blown away by it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a love letter to the clones. And Filoni sort of has that, like, this is his space. The clones are his space. He was given this, this job by George Lucas and was like, run with this and do this justice. And I mean, and probably got a million notes from Lucas about what, the real tragedy of the clones. And Filoni just did a phenomenal job with the telling of the clone stories. And I mean, I don't know what's next. If there'll be something next, Filoni's kind of busy. I mean, he has a really good team that can obviously crank out a bunch of these things, but I don't know. I'd be excited to see what Filoni does next.
I'd be shocked if there's not another animated series on the horizon. I feel like Filoni at his heart is an animation guy. Like that's where he got to start. I think he still loves it. I mean, we'll talk about Tales of the Empire. He's still involved with at least writing. And with this, he was not, he didn't have much of it. I mean, I don't know what his hand was.
He got all the credits. I did watch them. He was like writer, director. He got all the credits on this one.
For Bad Batch, for the last episode of Bad Batch, or for Tales of the Empire?
Both.
Just curious.
I don't. Both. No, I'm confusing them, but I think both.
Okay. But for the most part, for most of Bad Batch, he was not hugely involved in terms of being executive producer, which again varies on how involved you are with that. Yeah. So he might have been in the writer's room and doing stuff, but he wasn't actively writing the scripts or directing many of the episodes, right? And so like I think, like you said, he has a team that he trusts, and like all I know is whatever they're doing in Bad Batch is working. Yeah. Meaning that like they know, so either Filoni is involved so much that his voice is coming through, or that he knows to put the people underneath him that can execute his vision in a way that is just still pure Filoni.
Yeah. Very cool stuff, man. So why don't we get into some of the theories like coming out?
Yeah. I want to talk about
please.
Yeah, which might be the epilogue, might kind of lead to that. I want to talk about the epilogue on this thing for a second.
We'll definitely get to the epilogue. I have a couple of things.
Okay, you want to talk about
a couple of things.
Oh, go for it. Okay.
Because I don't want.
Oh, okay, good. All right.
First, so there was some talk online about Tarkin sweeping in and reallocating all of the stuff from Mount Tantus to Stardust. I mean, how does that play for you? Like, I don't know. Does it make sense that like that? I mean, this was the most important project for the Emperor, and now all of a sudden it's being put into the Death Star. Like how does that make like why would the Emperor sort of, I mean, give up on this project at this stage?
No, yeah. So I don't know. It doesn't jive with me at all, to be honest. It feels more of like, boy, is it starting to feel like the EU to me, which is in its good and bad ways, where it's just like, well, they can't figure out cloning for another 30 odd years, 40 years. And we know even with the Mandalorian, they're talking about Project Necromancer, and that's 20 years, 20 something years. So like we can't get there yet. So we have to have a reason why it's a setback. And the LSA was like a really great way to do that. But then you would assume they're still doing Mount Tantus because it's not like it was completely destroyed. But then Tarkin comes in with his project and like, I don't know. It made Palpatine feel weak in a way that doesn't connect with me as this person, as we were joking throughout the entire marathon of like, all according to my plan.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But like,
it's like whatever happens, he's like, yes, exactly how I planned it. And it's like, just stop it. I mean, well, that's actually something he learned from his master Plagueis. But though Plagueis was very aware of the tides of the Force, and sort of like when the Force was on the side of the dark side, like he would ride the wave and do the things, and when it sort of was kicking back, he'd get more conservative. At least according to the Plagueis novel. But yeah, I mean, Tarkin's only a governor at this point. He's not a Moff yet. Right. So I mean, when he was a Moff, this was his job, was sort of allocating resources and managing mega projects and things. So, maybe it's part of that. I personally, I think it's just that, this project was so completely foobarred that there was like nothing left. It was just like, it's straight back to the drawing board. So until, I'm sure Sidious had multiple, initiatives working. Yeah. It wasn't just point. Mount Tantus. And so he was able to take. No,
I think you're right. Because then you get to the point of like, who's our brightest minds on this? We'll put them in a room together, and when they start actually cracking stuff again, then we'll start funding it again. There's nothing to fund, really, other than a bunch of people with whiteboards at this point, right? We're back to the idea phase. Like we're back at the So I guess that makes sense. And like one thing that was accomplished, whether they wanted to or not, as we talked about, is like the clones are done. At the end of this episode, the clones are pretty like non-existent. Yeah, because they've either completely fled or they're
a few
dead.
Survived from this this final escape, and they mentioned that they're sort of a lot of going to Pandora and then shuttled off to other places, but But
that's the thing that's weird too, is like clearly the Empire no longer cares about Omega or the Bad Batch. Yeah, because they go back to Pabu, which is just like. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I mean, granted, this is the person who this is a world, this is a galaxy where they hid the Skywalker back where the Skywalkers came from on their desert planet in the same exact house. So granted, you kind of do whatever, but like that seems to scream to me when I was shocked, because we talked about like Pabu's gone and we saw the attack of Pabu, and there's like no way they can never go back there, and they're like, no, they clearly have been there for 18 years at this point, or however long it was between the end of this and like 18 years or whatever, maybe. 14 years, but like decade and a half at the very least, and the Empire never came for them, because the Emperor just doesn't care at this point.
I think that actually might be a thing where it was like the whole Empire. I don't think they dispatched much of the Empire to do that first attack on Pabu. It was pretty much Hemlock's incursion. So maybe the knowledge of Pabu died with Hemlock, is my theory about that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. That they just don't.
They don't even know that. That was even a place of interest at that time.
That makes sense, because everything was wiped.
All right. So let me ask you another question, and it's Project Necromancer. And maybe it's a stupid question, but do we know anything more about Project Necromancer?
No, we got no answers. Nothing additional. We got the thing that was frustrating in kind of a good way, but kind of a good way, kind of a way that I appreciated, where I'm like, oh, this is like pure Star Wars, because we actually get Rampart looking at the screen, his eyes kind of lighting up and saying, with this I can do whatever I want. I have like my ticket out of here. And that's the end.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know what he saw.
And the scene before it, he goes, "Tell me everything you know about Project Necromancer." And it's like, cut.
And I'm like, hard cut. And
you were out of it. And then he comes back and he's like, "This is my ticket. If I know this, I can leverage it for whatever I want." And I think it's Project Necromancer. Like, I think it's a wink and a nod. You know where this is going.
That's the thing, is I feel like it's just like, we know what it is. To have a 5-minute exposition dump is going to actually feel it's going to probably feel like Qui-Gon explaining what midichlorians are to Anakin, right? Which is like, we do not need that scene. And I am not anti-midichlorian. I am anti that scene. To be honest, I'm just like, sir, what is
what is a Project Necromancer?
What is a symbiote?
When an emperor wants to live forever, and he loves someone very much, he puts them in a vat and impregnates them. I think that's kind of it. I guess we don't really need to, we all know what it is, but it just seemed like kind of weird, because let's say there's two types of fans. There's the hardcores that follow everything and have heard of Project Necromancer because they, have watched all the movies and they saw The Mandalorian, and they're like, yeah, okay, we know what that means. And then there's the other kind of fans that are just like, I don't know, maybe I guess Jonathan will be a good one to ask when I see him next. If you're listening, Jonathan, I want to talk to you about Project Necromancer. I assume Jonathan knows what that is, but it's like, maybe there's other people that don't. And so it's like, it didn't do any service. The people are like, well, what's a Project Necromancer on one side? And the other people are like, is Project Necromancer the thing we think it is? Like, just verify it. And like, he didn't serve either party,
because like my wife, for sure. I mean, it's a throwaway line in one episode of The Mandalorian. Yeah. I mean, it's an amazing line. It's a great Star Wars line, right? It's a great thing of just a lore drop. Just be like, wait, what is that? Moving on. And I guarantee you, Carly was in the moment of like, ooh, what's that? I bet she didn't watch the Bad Batch. I bet if we watched that, she would not have made the connection that was something that they had said one time in one episode
of The
Mandalorian. Yeah. So I'm not quite sure it is for us, but then they don't give us anything.
Like, literally nothing. Like, they teased those creches, those like red light creches at the beginning of the season, and then we find out in this episode that's just where they keep the CX.
It's just where they keep the CX troopers, which it's like one of those things where it's like, if this is the step between this and I can't think of the name of the troopers.
Dark Troopers. Death Troopers.
Dark Troopers.
Sorry.
Death Troopers.
I'm wearing
Death
one
Troopers.
on my shirt right now.
Like, yeah, there you go. Like just say that. Like, just say like, which is like part of what I'm thinking this is like, but we also talk about Project Necromancer in Mandalorian times, and we're way past the Death Troopers. So it's just like, so clearly there's more to it than just like, it's not just creating, like, it's cloning. So anyway, it's just, I guess we're still here. I guess the point is we're still here after 3 seasons of this, after this whole season, still having the same conversation we had when they first said Project Necromancer.
Right, which is probably the desired outcome. Because at least we're talking about it, and it's like, but like, you're right. It's a little lore drop. It's a little like, oh, but the thing, and like, I kind of hope we see some of it. It's just weird. Like, I guess now we know that Tantus is a place of many cloning and gene splicing projects. We get these CX troopers that are part of that. Clearly, but it wasn't like delineated clearly, like, well, yes, these are these CX troopers, and then there's also Project Necromancer. I mean, I think for the untrained eye, that could be Project Necromancer, where they're bringing these, they're taking these clones and torturing them into these, enhanced clones that are much like the Bad Batch. But it's just a weird place to drop in a new villain and then erase them.
It is odd. I'm starting to get the feeling where, like, so we know that that Filoni has a new title, Chief Creative yada yada officer, storyteller officer, like Chief so, but officer, he's one thing that really hasn't. I mean, sure it's been said, but like, he's basically the Kevin Feige of Star Wars now.
Yeah.
Which is like great, but like it's starting to feel like, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but like he is creating a larger universe, and this is his Infinity Stones, right? Like
Yeah.
the like Project Necromancer is the Infinity Stones, where you get you get mentions of it. It doesn't do anything in the actual movie itself. You don't need to know about it. But for those paying attention, boy, is it going to pay off in, I don't know, The Mandalorian and Grogu or Ahsoka Season 2. I bet you we're going to get stuff in both of those. And that may be, like, maybe that's the building towards what the Grogu Mandalorian thing is like a Project Necromancer storyline where they have to go in a cloning facility, I don't know, and blow up a bunch of Snoke tubes. I don't know. But like it feels like that's what's happening. And then like for someone like Carly who's tuned in and watching all of it, but maybe not like catching all these things, they're gonna tell a coherent enough story that you're like, oh yeah, clearly Project Necromancer are after it. And then you and I and Grant will be sitting there going, oh, like in Bad Batch, season 3, episode 5, they mentioned yada yada.
Right.
Like, know, so
dude,
that's what I think he's going for.
I love that metaphor so much, man. I love that so. Like, I think that's really the best way to explain it, because it's not just happening in Bad Batch. It's not just happening in Mandalorian. It's also happening in Ahsoka. Like, one of my questions for you was going to be, what's the future of Mount Tantus? And especially knowing what we know, because we recently read Heir to the Empire, this legend story with Thrawn, and he used Mount Tantus to clone Jedi. And so this, like later that happened, right, post Return of the Jedi. And so, kind of
right around
the Mandoverse time.
The Mandoverse.
So I'm just sort of wondering, like, Thrawn is the type of guy to dust off old tech and make it useful in a new way. Like, he's got a bunch of, Dathomirian witches and like, that are Force users and a bunch of corpses and, maybe it's sort of reinvented, but instead of Luke clones, it's reanimated dark side witches, or like, that are hybridized with, the Emperor's DNA or something.
I would not undersell the possibility of a Luke.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't in something, because like you can de-age Mark Hamill, like you can do this whole thing and have like to give everyone a dark side Luke.
Yeah.
Like I could see them really want to do that in a movie theater. But like, yeah, I mean, this thing, right? We know at the end of Ahsoka, we know that Thrawn is back in the main galaxy, right? And like, boy, and we know that Filoni likes Mount Tantus. He's telling those stories and everything he can, and he's talking about Project Necromancer, and like, I'm so fascinated to see what they're going to do with Ahsoka season 2. It's got to cut back and forth between those two storylines. It's got to cut back and forth between what's going on with Ezra, and boy, do they just need to. I love Ahsoka, and I really wish it was just Ahsoka. Can they just rename that series to like Rebels, like Rebels Again, Rebels Folia Do? Like it is like, because it is, but in a good way. Like because you gotta spend half the time without Ahsoka and in the main galaxy with Ezra and Thrawn, right? Like you have to.
Yeah. Meg Dowell wrote an article for Dork Side of the Force that was like, Ahsoka is, you don't want Rebels Part 2. Like, it's not going to be Rebels Part 2. Stop like asking for it to be Rebels Part 2. But it's like, yeah.
I agree with her, but that's what we got in a lot of ways. It kind of was.
It kind of
like that's and that's when it knocked Carly off a little bit, with just like she was so into that that show for like the first half of the season. The second half, she's like, Who are all these people?
Like, why do I care?
Yeah. She came back around, like once she like spent more time with Ezra and Sabine and all these people, and was like, okay. But like it was just like it did just turn.
She's
into
like, why do I
Rebels
care
reunion.
about this guy? Yeah.
Why is there reverence going on for a person I've never seen nor name I've never heard before?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I got to give a lot of credit to these storytellers, because it's not just like making. It's not like making a Marvel series. There's like, it's a very tight eye of the needle that they have to keep threading over and over again. And they've done I think they've done a really good job with it.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. There's been very few. Watching everything in a row. Boy, did I really. When we watched all 9 episodes, I was just like, boy, do I want to watch Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Like, I guess with the sequel trilogy, I was kind of like, could they just like maybe just show the entire Obi-Wan series now and then go into A New Hope and then show Rogue One and then show like, no, it would have been wild, but like it did make me want to watch seeing that much Ewan McGregor.
I think we it did. And like I think we talked about this as well. It's like I couldn't between, Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, like my brain was reconciling 1,000 comics, 3 live action series, like of 2 movies, like feature films. Like I was just like, and like the journey and all the content that happens that I know about that happened between those 2 movies it's a lot.
So between episodes 5 and 6, they gave us the only break, which was like an hour break, which I still think was a mistake because so it's like now it's now like 7 a.m., 7:30, 8 a.m. I think it's 8 something.
Yeah.
So Ben and I are like, what are we gonna do? So we just went outside and walked around a parking lot for about 45 minutes.
It was a very nice parking lot. It was the top deck.
It was good. It was
of
nice.
A 3-tier
thing. It
was very nice. The sun was shining.
It was sunny out.
It was beautiful.
It was great. It was cool. It was beautiful. But I was just like, we were talking about that. I'm just like, so they leave and like see you on Tatooine, and I'm like, well, yeah, they go to Tatooine to do a reconnaissance mission that they then leave. Then there's a war of the bounty hunters. Then the droids come alive and get possessed by stuff, and then
they almost hack the Force, and then
yeah. It's just wild,
right? War of the bounty hunters, the Crimson Reign, like they're
right, Crimson Reign, War of the bounty hunters, Crimson Reign,
Darth Vader and
dark droids,
and the Emperor are almost trapped in like a infinity prison.
right.
It's there's a lot.
It's good storytelling, but it is hard to reconcile all that stuff.
And when you try to recall it in that context, you're like, so much information that is taking the space of things that should be occupied by, like, I don't know, the history of the United States or something. Whatever. Wild. All right, one more question for you. Where do the kids go that were rescued from the vault? What say ye?
Oh, that's a really good question. Which what a trick of storytelling that I didn't even consider that. I didn't even think about that. I don't know. That's got to be where the path stuff starts in, right? Like that's got to be part of the formation of the path, which again I think is the logical like follow up to the show is the path, is the origin of the path.
Yep, that's what I've written it as one thing on again I'll prop Reddit Star Wars Cantina incidentally is a fantastic sub if you're a Reddit person, very positive, very just lore centric, but that was my 2 cents on that. Was they were just sort of like, well, what do you want to see next? And mine is a path show, and I want it to center around Asajj Ventress trying to find Quinlan Boss. And what I would like that I'm not going to get, I doubt I'll get the show or what I want, but for what it's worth, I'd want some lore that I can sink my teeth into. Like all these shows kind of dance around the major points and sort of live in their tiny little space, but it's like I want something to happen that means something in one of these shows, and I feel like a path show could do that. Like Asajj Ventress reuniting with Quinlan Voss I think would be a very powerful show. I think having these kids come back would be amazing. The kids from the show, like there, and maybe a couple other big names from the Jedi Order, and I'm forgetting. Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue, but the female like undercover Imperial that helps on the path, who passes away. Like she could be a good character. O'Shea Jackson Jr. His character could be great.
Yeah. They really set that up. Like that show is like I'd love to see Ewan McGregor do more Obi-Wan because he's great at it. But like at the end of that series, I'm like, I want the path. Yeah. Like I want these characters. Like you get Kumail Nanjiani's character, the fake Jedi in there.
Right.
It's like a little, like,
and you could dovetail in with the Jedi video game series. Sarah Jinda, could make an appearance. They could sort of flirt with a Cal Kestis thing. We don't know when the next game's coming out, but like those could kind of converge. Yeah. We've talked about that a lot. With that next game could have something to do with the path.
Yeah,
and Tanalorr.
It's got to.
From that game.
That's the thing. is like, I think is it the end of Revenge of the Sith where like Yoda and Obi-Wan are basically saying like, we're the only ones left. I think you turned to me and I was like, you watched me and I was like going,
you ticked off like 10 Jedi that are still
I
alive.
was literally counting all the Jedi that stay alive, which is like fine, but like we have to accept as Star Wars fans and creators that there are a heck of a lot of Force users and Jedis that made it out of Order 66, which by the way makes sense. Yeah. It makes sense. They're Jedi. You killed 99.999% of them, and 10 or 12 of them made it out. Tell those stories. Yeah. Like, you got to start telling those stories.
I think it's more than that. I mean, there was thousands. I think there was 10,000 Jedi before, the Clone Wars, and then that was whittled down like a tenth of that number. So it's like you're still talking about like 1,000 or so Jedi at least, like actual Jedi, and then you have Force sensitive, the Boken Jedi, as Ray Stevenson so eloquently put it, So it's like, I don't know, that would be my hope for a new series would be like, let's get back to dealing with some Jedi issues and what are these. I mean, because really, the video game series has the corner on the sort of survival Jedi market, but it's like that story could be told in an animated series as well.
It's weird that a video game tells the most complete story of a Jedi survivor post at Order 66, which I mean, like, it's great. It's amazing. Even if you're not I will always say this, even if you're not a gamer, you don't want to play, do yourself a favor and go to YouTube and just watch all the cutscenes. Yeah. Like, just watch them to get that story, because it is amazing. But it is odd to think about that's where they spent most of that storytelling time. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's fascinating. So I just wanted, as a quick aside here, we don't have Grant. We miss him deeply. We assume he'll be back. We're going to record again a week from, yesterday. So next Sunday.
Yesterday, yeah.
But I want to touch on both of these series with him as well, because I think there's a lot to be said about it. So we'll kind of
I want to hear what his takes.
Yeah, I want to do two-parters on both of these things. I think it's important we talk about it now because it's fresh, and I want to talk about it because it's great. But I'd love to get
fertile ground.
Yeah. Because I mean, it also dovetails in with our other. I mean, we're burying the lead here. We're an hour and change into this podcast, and we're just now talking about one of the biggest contributions to happen to Star Wars in 2024, and that's Tales of the Empire. Which
I want to talk about the epilogue.
Oh, sorry.
I still haven't talked about that. No, it's fine. I just want to say the epilogue cried my eyes out. Like, just bawled out, because here's the things I love about it is, one, there's three things I love about it.
All right.
One, they do a really good way of confirming that that Crosshair and Wrecker are still alive and well.
They're fine.
Because you watch that, because it's only a moment between her and Hunter, which I think is appropriate. We don't need everyone else. But I sat there going, oh no.
Are they okay?
Like, are we just not going to know what happened? And there's a moment where they just mention it. The second thing is Gonki almost gets the last word.
Yes.
In the entire series, almost gets it. It's fine that he doesn't, but he gets like the second to last word in the entire series.
What was the word?
Still alive. I don't know, just Gonki saying Gonki stuff, but it's technically a language.
There was a gratuitous like door open, and Gonki walks out and just goes gonk, and I was like, Gonki. Yeah, that was important.
Yeah. And then, all joking aside, the thing that I love the most is like it took the lesson of one of the best Yoda moments in the entire Skywalker trilogy that I think of. And I was thinking of this before we watched it, but we are what they grow beyond.
Yeah.
It's the true burden of a master. It's one of my favorite lines of anything. It reminds me of being a teacher, of being a professor, of being a parent. It just reminds me of that and the bittersweet moment of that. And like, they showed that, right? They showed that Omega has grown beyond the Bad Batch because of all of the lessons that the Bad Batch gave her. And I'm like about to start crying now just thinking about it. But like, it's funny because I watched that whole episode going, this is good. It's very restrained. I don't have a ton of feels, but I like what they did. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't emotional. And boy, was that epilogue just a gut punch in a good way. I'm just like, oh boy, like she's fully formed. And like, it's just like, I love the fact she's like, no, you rest. You've earned your rest.
Yeah.
Like, all of you.
You're like, but I have to be part of it.
So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, really, yeah. It's funny, you guys, that hit you hard. Like, you didn't be like, all you sent were crying emojis, like you and Grant. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. And I was like waiting for it. And I was like, oh. Same.
Yeah, because Grant sent it first. Yeah. Same. Yeah.
And now I get it. I imagine, as you being a teacher and a father, two things I'm not, that would hit y'all harder. And it was a beautiful moment. And just a nice little cap on it. And it sort of says, yes, they had 15 to 19 years of peace. But Omega's story went on. And I mean, though the grimy Star Wars fan in me is just sort of like, so where was she though? Why?
I know, right?
Like, she's probably one of the best fighters and or the best pilots in the rebellion, and she's where exactly? Because I didn't see her on Hoth, and
nope.
Who knows?
We were looking for we were looking for her all throughout those movies, and I didn't see anyone that could be Omega. We found other possible clones. But
listen, if Filoni wanted to make another Rebels parallel to the first Rebels, or another storyteller, around Omega and her, Phantom Squadron, or no, that's already been done. But I don't know, Scarface Squadron or something, like they could do that, and it could be their own sort of ladder into the rebellion and what happened. But it's a big galaxy,
right? Like they've done it before. They had to weirdly explain where I just had his name and it just flew out of my brain. What's his name that's in episode 7 and episode 9? Dies in episode 9, but it's not in episode 8.
Nine Nub.
The guy
Wedge Antilles.
No, also yes, but the guy who's
Snap Wexley,
friend of JJ, Stack Wexley, right? Like they wrote an entire comic series to explain where he was during episode 8.
Yeah. Right, that's right.
In the Poe Dameron series,
right?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's another place where it was just like, yo, man, do a guy a favor, use some Snap Wexley.
Right? And I'm like, oh, it's so weird reading all the comics and the books where it'd be like, oh, that's like Wedge's adopted son that just died and no one cared.
Yeah.
You just like Wedge is there and just witnessed his adopted son die. It's real dark if you've read the expanded universe.
And his wife is probably in a B-wing somewhere.
Probably.
I didn't see her.
And Wedge is all like, yay, I'm here for 2 seconds in episode 9.
As a
I'm like,
gunner?
Your son just died.
As a gunner in the Falcon?
Right.
Like, no, put that man in an X-wing.
I know, right? Yeah, I don't remember what I said. Oh, but yeah, so I think there's absolutely room to tell Omega's story in the Rebellion that gives her agency and a big story, but also explains why she's not there during the biggest moments of it. Or maybe she's in, there's a lot of ships that she could be in.
Yeah, it's just now I'm going to have to watch all the movies again and look for a blonde-haired, pilot. It's like a blonde ponytail sticking out of a helmet somewhere and be like, there she is, I found her.
I mean, there is a female pilot in episode 6 that we hear her voice. I have to go back and listen to it.
Okay.
So maybe you could be like, that's Omega. There you go.
Yeah, but was it
a run on the Death Star
Kiwi accent? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but they could redub it. They've redubbed other stuff.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, do I have to reread Alphabet Squadron and figure out, like, is she there? Like, I mean, she's alive. She could pop up in Mandalorian. She could be one of the Rangers of the New Republic. They just like, gosh, who would we cast? And probably just she'd have to have the accent. The accent, though.
I know, and I don't know a lot of
New Zealand actresses, but
New Zealand Kiwi actresses who could do. I mean, I know some, but
I'm sure they're there. We just don't know.
I mean, obviously, it's a whole thing. I'm like trying to think of like Wellington Pete Paranormal that I watch, but I'm like, those are all comedy actors. But I'm like, I don't know. You can get a British actor
to do a Kiwi accent.
Part of it is like just give. I mean, we didn't actually see Gwendolyn Christie outside of the Phasma armor.
Oh my
gosh,
too tall. I'm trying to think.
I don't know. We don't.
I feel like Kirsten Dunst or something. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to like.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't cast one right now, but that's just a name that pops up.
No, neither could I. But like, it's they're out there, and like, I'd love to see her live action.
Yeah. So we might not have seen the last of her. Okay, now can we pivot?
Now
so
we
sorry.
can do
You waited so patiently, and I'm like, no.
That's all right. No.
Right on. So okay, Tales of the Empire again. I want to do.
I just want to jump in for a second. Travis Mitchell said the lead actress from Fallout might be able to play.
Yes, she would be perfect.
Omega. That's a great. I have not watched Fallout yet, but I've seen the previews and I know that actress, and I'm like, yes, that is actually like spot on. Yeah, that's a good one.
She can train up, get a nice coach to teach her a proper Kiwi accent. I've heard Australian is one of the toughest accents to learn, especially for an American. And I imagine Kiwi is not far behind. It's just like so close, but not there. But go to New Zealand for a while, learn it. That would be great.
Love it. Now we can do Tales of the Empire.
Tales of the Empire. And again, we're gonna have to touch on this next week too. But I feel like we should talk about the big issues here. I love how they split this up even. It's like 3 episodes about Morgan Elsbeth, 3 episodes about Barriss Offee, bang bang. Let's start with Morgan Elsbeth. What did you learn from this progression?
Well, okay. So I want to give overall impression.
All right.
I feel now that we're an hour and whatever in, I have a very similar reaction to this series as I did to Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah, me too.
And then I really, really liked one story, and the other story I was kind of like, I'm a little less on. And it'd be interesting because maybe we differ. But I want to explain my thinking about this. I thought it was well done. I thought all stories were interesting. Nothing like bugged me the same level it bugged me with Tales of the Jedi. But like, here's the thing. Morgan Elsbeth to me is a really fascinating character who I think is like something unique we haven't seen in Star Wars before in terms of like this. And I feel like we told her entire story in 45 minutes. And
that's what this
I'm like, this is a good book. Give me a book. Give me a long book on this. Like, I want to delve into this character. And I'm like, what I want from these series, and they're not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but what I really want from these series is give me a true anthology. Give me a tale that is 16 minutes of a Jedi, or in this case, a dark side user or something that doesn't steal, might be too harsh of a word, but doesn't kind of eat up territory that is fertile for something more than this. Does that make sense? Like, that's kind of what I felt. But like, I got through the 3 episodes of Morgan Elsbeth, and I'm like, that's amazing. And boy, did that feel rushed. And I would have loved a longer, like, give me 2 hours, give me a book, give me something. This character's so fascinating. And we got the major points. Boom, boom, boom. It reminded me of the Ahsoka part of what they told in that, where it's just like, especially with that, they were like, he was taken from like a book where I'm like, that book was great. Like, and it, fine, go read the book. But like, part of me is like, please now someone write the Morgan Elsbeth book.
Right.
Like, give me more of this. So that's my reaction. The Barriss Offee we can talk about, I really, really enjoyed, and I like that. And I feel like that character has also gotten a lot more screen time. So I was okay with kind of the pace of it a little more. Another redemption arc we can talk about. What were your kind of main takeaways?
Well, yeah, that's right. It's smart to start with the 20,000 foot view of these, because I feel the same way. They're like, it's connective tissue, and I've seen people online that like Tales of the Jedi is like some of their favorite content. They love it so much. So I'm not trying to take away from people that love this, these stories. But for me, I'm like, it's just like kind of rushed connective tissue for the sake of Dave. Who just feels like he thinks these stories need to be told. So he's telling them in a very, like, essentially, they're all 15 to 17 minutes. So it's a 50-minute episode, 2 50-minute episodes, like, or I guess more, like 2, maybe almost an hour each. I don't know.
45. It's like 45. It's like 40 minutes, because you when you chop off all the chop off the 3 minutes of credits at the end, you really are. Because I did the math of like, oh no, am I able to finish these before the podcast? And I'm like, I finished it and still had a half an hour left. Like, that's how fast they go. Yeah.
So that's, so we saw. I get why, with in Tales of the Jedi, they did the Ahsoka story. It was in lieu of the novel. Like, if you hadn't read the Ahsoka novel, right,
here's the cliff
notes. This is sort of like how it happened, and this is helpful to you to sort of flesh out Ahsoka's story before you get into the live action series. Okay. And like Morgan Elsbeth, like that was sort of why Morgan Elsbeth is connected to Thrawn. And
it tells that story just very, very quickly and not in depth, not with any nuance or depth to it. Which that seems like a character that's very nuanced.
Sell it short. In a way, it's very nuanced, right? Because we learned about Dathomir that yes, there are these dark side witches, but there's also light side mountain dweller witches.
Yes, which was I love that. Great. I need more of that, please. Yeah, that was really that's the thing. It's like there's a lot in all of these that are really, really interesting that they hit on for a few minutes and then have to move on because they have
super
limited amount of time and space.
Yeah, and so episode 1, there are light side witches, and she kind of condemned them to not great fate, got some people killed, but it's just sort of like, no, I am a Dathomiri witch. Right. This is who I am. Part 2, she's like, she actually developed the technology to create the TIE Defender, which was the hallmark, the centerpiece of what Thrawn was pitching to the Empire to be like, this is the tool that will bring us victory.
Which also connects to this idea of him going back to Mount Tantus, because he likes to find people who are creative, right? And so he might go back to someone who had some kind of connection to Mount Tantus to be like, yes, I'm taking you into my way.
Fire up we're going to clean this place up and make it operational again. Yeah. And then part 3 was an immediate preface to actually the Mandalorian episode, the first Mandalorian episode where we see Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka for the first time.
Yeah.
I think it's episode 6 or something. On Corvus is the name of the planet. Corvus, and it's sort of like how she was really the tool of the Empire to take over that region and start her production. And though she was sort of laughed at in her pitch meeting to the Empire, she was then emboldened and funded by Thrawn to actually do the thing that she wanted to do. And we got a Captain Pelion reference, who was expanded universe guy we also saw in Mandalorian. I just think the answer I wanted from Morgan is like, why was she murdered by the Separatists and then aligned with the Empire? Like she witnessed the genocide of her people by the Separatists, but didn't know that the Separatists and the Republic were really under the same ruler. Like, was it her rebelling against the Separatists by being like, yes, we need order so that these uprisings don't come? Like, I wanted more content about that.
That part's really unclear, and for a lot of high level people in these stories, where I get the populace, right? The hoi polloi who weren't there to know this and was duped by Palpatine, right? And this idea that I brought order and destroyed the Separatists, right? And we got rid of the Jedi, and now we have order. All these two chaotic sides I took care of. But someone who's up there to the level of working really closely with Thrawn, are we to believe that she just never found out that the Separatists were it's weird. I had the same thought when I was watching this. I'm like, I just need some time,
because you survived a genocide and then you immediately go and oppress a people, you kill their whole environment and and exploit an entire populace into slaves. Is that the next thing that happens?
I mean, you're not. I will say this bluntly, possibly, but it's impossible to tell that story coherently in 45 minutes. This is the realm of, to be honest, this is the realm of novels. This is the realm of books, because you need an internal monologue and that struggle. And we'll get to it when we talk about Barriss Offrey, but Rise of the Red Blade tells a story that gives you a coherent, how someone falls to the dark side in a believable way and buys in. Yeah.
Amazing book. Yeah, we reviewed it. Please read that book. It's fun. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And it's not a slight against these shows, because that's a difficult thing to demonstrate in a movie or a series like this. You need long form. To be honest, you need a long form television series. You need something like a Breaking Bad. You need 5 seasons to be able to demonstrate someone's downfall to that level that makes sense. That's the only time you can talk about that, and Sopranos. And you're talking about 60, 70 episodes to be able to tell that story. You can't do it in 2 hours. You can't do it in 15 minutes or half an hour. You need a novel where you can literally get into the brain and the thought process of a character, or long form television series, which is the reality of storytelling.
So let's get 20,000 feet on Barriss Offrey then. Her trilogy of stories. So I mean, we know, and I don't know if our listeners know, that Barriss Offrey had an arc in the Clone Wars where she was convinced that actually the Jedi were the bad guys in this, and she saw it happening, and she had a couple terrorist strikes against the clones because she was convinced that the Jedi weren't the good people, and and I mean, and
Right.
it made a lot of sense actually in that arc. It was like you
Yeah.
can see like
Yeah.
she had foreseen sort of like the path, and it's just like, this is not what I signed up for as a Jedi.
She
Right.
wasn't wrong. It was the methods that she used were wrong, right? It's, to being a being a parent of a 3-year-old, it's, feelings are okay. It's what we do with
Right.
the feelings that matter,
Very good. Very
right?
good.
Which is yeah,
Right. So
yeah,
she's incarcerated at the and during Order 66, and she's technically not a Jedi. She's been ousted from the Order, which, like, ironically saves her life and makes her a prime conscript for the Inquisitorius. So episode 1, we see her conscripted by the Inquisitorius.
yep,
Episode 2, she comes to the realization of what that actually means. And episode 3, we sort of see her ultimate destiny, or close there too.
yeah, perhaps,
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just, again, connective tissue. Is just like there's this loose thread about Barriss Offee that a lot of people were curious about, and Filoni wanted to tell a story, and it was whimsical, and it was fun, and it was like, this is more the type of stuff that I'd like to see with these sort of like taking. I'd love even a character I don't know anything about, almost like a Visions, like what they do in Visions, and sort of tell this, tight little story about a character that's like tangentially related to major events that happen in the Skywalker saga, or the, High Republic, or, things like that.
What's fascinating is this is the same order as Tales of the Jedi, right? Because it was Ahsoka first and Dooku second, right?
They interleaved them.
Oh,
so
that's
it was like
right.
Ahsoka Dooku.
That was a bad move. This is the right.
Ahsoka.
This is the right way to do it. Is to do one after the other. I forgot about that. But it's so funny too, where I think like the Ahsoka story is clearly a tale of a Jedi, and Morgan Elsbeth is clearly a tale of the Empire. And then Dooku is a tale of a Jedi who becomes a Sith, and this is a tale of a dark side user who becomes back a Jedi again. I kind of appreciate that. Like, it's kind of funny, or like technically not really. I guess it's a tale of the Empire because she starts in the Empire. It's just so funny. It's like, whatever, just keep calling it Star Wars tales. I don't know. Like, you're forcing yourself into a box a little bit, but like, this one I really enjoyed it. I didn't push back against it as much. I think part of it is we have more time with Barriss Offee in the animated series. It felt like it needed to be done at some point. It was like, I part of me feels like Filoni was just like, okay, I cannot go on the internet and see another Barriss Offee theory about everything that I do. Like, is she going to be the one that's in the like, literally? I remember when what's his name showed up in Ahsoka, who was like the
Inquisitor,
the Inquisitor, the Mystic Inquisitor, or the Inquisitor in like Obi-Wan, and then the Mist Inquisitor in which, by the way, awesome, still one of the best things that ever happened in the Star Wars, or the Inquisitor that was like had like in Ahsoka, who was just like
turned into like
non-corporeal, or whatever, or just I don't know,
turned into like
disintegrated.
fireflies.
It was great. But like every time that would happen, there'd be the theory online of like, this is Barriss. Like every time, and I'm sure he was just like, no. I gotta tell her stories because I can't deal with this anymore. Yeah. But it was a good fitting thing. It was nice to see her get a redemption arc. It was nice to see her live. She aged. I mean, she had some rough miles on her between episodes 2 and 3. I was trying to figure out the timeline on that.
And we know she's a Miralon, which is the same species as Vernestra Rowe.
I didn't, but that makes sense. That's great.
I think.
I think you're right.
And like they have very long lifetimes. Yeah. And this was clearly, I mean, there were still Inquisitors, so it was like, she aged a lot in like 10 years. At least in her face. Maybe she's living a tough life.
They did call her the healer.
Yeah.
Right. So part of me is now like trying to like retcon. This is what I love to do. I'll talk a bit about this. Actually, one thing a theory about the sequel trilogy that I wanted to share. But anyway, with the retconning, part of it is like, is she just siphoning off her force to heal people? Yeah. And that's like taking a toll on her life force, right? Because this is part of like her atonement. I love that. It's just like, I'm just healing people, and like it's aging me faster. Yeah. Right. Like which we see in like in the sequel trilogies, right? We see like Rey lose power, like now I'm playing a video game, but like get winded and tired. We see it happen to Kylo, dies, basically bringing Rey back to life. Like I like this idea.
That was just as an aside, because now that you've brought this up, like that was one of the other things about watching all 9 in a row. It's like, it's so cool that like the prequels are fueled by this desire to preserve life and live forever and you know, and bring the loved ones back from the dead, keep people from dying. And then like Rey just figures it out as a teenager.
A Jedi figured it out.
Jedi figures it out as a teenager, and it's like this main thing that goes on, and like that's how the story ends, is a Jedi actually, like, you know, it's like you have to give life to save life, and that's not something that a Sith would do, and maybe that's why they don't understand that power.
That's the thing, right? It's a selfish act for the Sith, right? It's a destructive act to try to stay alive forever, and it's a sacrificial act for the Jedi, right? It is beautiful. It is, again, it's one of those things where maybe do it once in your life if you have a good 24 hours. As you watch it, you do get this impression of like, oh, they really were thinking about all those movies that came before. We don't give them credit for that.
Right. A lot of times they really don't get credit for it. And but yeah, so there she is as a healer. But you know, I love that story that she came back around and she was like, you know, she even talks about it. She's like, I went through a rough patch, and it's like very much an Anakin story too. When he comes back from the dead to speak with Ahsoka, he's like, oh, that happened. You know, but it was like, oh yes, the 20 years you were Darth Vader and like killed a bajillion people. Yeah. You know, that was sort of like, she was like, yeah, I made some mistakes, and
acknowledged it.
Right. But she understood like the core of the Jedi principles, you know, and was like, yes, this is why I became a Jedi. This is why I'll always be a Jedi. And this is, you know, and yes, they fell astray. They were doing their best in a tough situation. Actually, this is where, talking to Grant, I can't wait, because he's been wanting a story like this exactly for a long time. It's sort of like the Jedi doctrine was right. He's been looking for that story, instead of them just taking L's and we were dumb and we made mistakes and the Jedi, you know, doctrine was flawed. It's like, no, the Jedi doctrine was perfect. They're, you know, they're thinking of others first. They're trying, you know, but they were just deceived and they caught an L. And it was a big one, you know, but they just, you know, they soldiered forth. But like the Jedi doctrine was right. It's like we put others before ourselves. We just try to help in any way we can, the best we can for that given time. And does like a Jedi a sacrifice play at the end? I really do think, just to bring Lynn back, like, right, just this idea of like trying to, like, there's that moment where it's just like, I mean, Barriss is no slouch at that point. She knew she was in the way of that lightsaber, right? Like, like she knew that was the end of that, right? And that's what she knew, that's that push to, again, stop, to bring someone back to the light, or at least away from the dark, and like stop that path of destruction. It's a really beautiful moment, and it really, like, it's a weird moment where like they cut to her stab by the lightsaber. And like usually you'd be like a Qui-Gon, no, and I'm like, like it was like it felt like triumphant, like she knew it was coming. It
was kind of beautiful.
And she's like, if I have to sacrifice myself to teach this lesson, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, and it was an interesting roll call there. You know, this kind of grinds my gears, because like, if I'm going to see Darth Vader sitting in front of the Inquisitorius, I want to see the whole Inquisitorius. But we did learn in Rise of the Red Blade, like, if I'm going to play devil's advocate or Vader's advocate here, they do kind of compartmentalize the Inquisitorius a little bit. But it was just like, you know, he was sitting down in front of 4 Inquisitors, and it was Lynn, who we know from Kenobi. And I don't know if she lives.
Yeah, she's not.
She must live. She survives that whole incursion there. But she's a main character in Kenobi. Not a main character, but you know, a prominent Inquisitor there. It's Barriss Offee.
She's last in Kenobi 4, which is chronologically before this episode of the right.
And then so Barriss, and then we have, I forget, I don't even know if he's named, the Inquisitor from Ahsoka. Yeah, which is like a weird pull. Okay, so almost just to say, she's not him.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we get the Inquisitor from the Ahsoka Tales from the Jedi, just as like a kind of connective tissue callback. Be like, yeah, no, this guy was around. He was doing things. You never saw him before, but yeah, he was there. He was early.
Yeah.
And like maybe this was the first 4 Inquisitors, you know, and also we have the Grand Inquisitor. We knew from the comics that he was kind of the first one tapped to pull this team together. But yeah, really fun Inquisitor stuff, but it was just sort of like, I'm like, you're just showing me 4 and it's these. And like, they didn't want to bog you down with too many characters. I think like be like, show people.
And they only had a few, like 14 minutes, right? Marok was the one from Ahsoka. I was like, it had the name was driving me nuts, but yeah. Right. Yeah, of course. But yeah, so no, agreed. It's one of those things where, you know, I don't know. Like, this is not the one where I'm like, we need a book, because I don't think we do. Because like Rise of the Red Blade was so good at telling that story. So I like this, but yeah, maybe. I mean, I know you're I don't know, but I agree. Like that part felt really rushed.
Yeah.
The Inquisitor stuff, and like I was so anti-Inquisitor for so long. Not anti, but I just it was like, it's weird to me. And now they've done such a good job with Rebels and Obi-Wan and this, where I'm just like, oh yeah, it's now part of my headcanon that Inquisitors were around, and it makes complete sense to me. And it doesn't seem weird to me at all during like Star Wars and all that, or New Hope and all that. There might be some Inquisitors still around, but like I agree. Like I just felt kind of like, this is all we're getting.
Yeah.
Like in this scene.
I think this arc is kind of like what the exact thing they should be doing for Tales. Like this is kind of it's a nice little 3-episode vignette of this, you know, story and what it is, and you know, it told the full story. And actually, I mean, I think Barasafi survived, and again, that's 2 more characters that could come into a Path show, you know, in a Path animated series if they both survive. And it's like they sort of limp back, and Lynn is trying to figure out her way to, you know, what do I do now? And it's like, we need to get you to safety, and secretly this has been going on the whole time. And you know, there's just a lot of great characters. That's I don't know.
Agreed.
It would be a fun show. But yeah, I mean, I could use more of it. You know, of her character and what went on. But that's my, you know, refrain is more.
Agreed. You know, as much as we're talking about, like, I some of the stuff I kind of bumped up against. That's not me saying that's not me saying stop doing this. Right? Like, please, more. Like, I will absolutely, like, it's fun. There's good stuff here. Some are going to hit better than art. Like, I do love the Dooku series from Tales of the Jedi. I think that's kind of a really pretty interesting arc. I do love the Barasafi, and the other 2 are fine. Like, I mean, the worst thing I'd say about the Morgan Elsbeth is that, like, I just want more. Yeah. Like, which is not a bad thing, but it left me wanting a lot more. And there's also room for it. There's room for a book here.
Right.
Like, someone write that book that you can weave all of this stuff in and give us a little more context and tell some stories in between.
Yeah, and I love that very much. But yeah, it's just a little snack for a Star Wars glutton like me. I'm like, that barely whet my appetite. I'm just like, and you know, these aren't series that I'm gonna go back to. I've tried, and I
don't know if I'll ever watch them again.
It's short. Yeah. Again, I've sort of memorized it, and I'm like, okay, I know what you're getting at, but I need something more depth. Yeah, I need something more satiating.
I know I'll rewatch the Clone Wars again. I know I'll rewatch Rebels again, having done both of those several times. Like I know I'll watch the Bad Batch again at some point. Like, I will do those. 100%. Yeah, everything. Like even the stuff that where I'm like, Boba Fett, which is like my least favorite. I know I'm gonna 100% rewatch Boba Fett, and I'm not that far away from doing it. I keep almost starting it because I'm like, I gotta like go through it.
It's
again.
A fun ride, man. It's actually not long.
Yeah.
You know, it's only like 6 episodes
That's
or whatever.
Part of it,
and it's and it makes a lot more sense in context. Okay, I'm not gonna get off my Boba Fett soapbox here. Yeah, man.
Someone needs to do
it. Right, exactly. I'm gonna cut it there. Next week, who knows? Maybe we'll have some more news and things. This is the May. So there could be more things as we await the Acolyte debut. But definitely, I'm looking forward to getting Grant in the room again. He's in the wings.
I need to hear his thoughts on this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we'll have some more surprises as we always do at the Cantina. Like to keep it fresh. and, bring friends in and have a good time, have a couple laughs at the cantina, talk about what's going on in the world. So it'll be great. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's it, man. Thanks very much for listening. Travis, thanks for chiming in again. We appreciate your contributions, and everyone else that's listening as well. We'll talk to you next week. May the force be with you, and we'll see you again in the cantina on Cantina Chronicles.